for one of the fastest kickers at Florida and maybe the world. How much of it is social kick?
Ooh. I think we've social kicked. Okay, we've social kicked once this year when we were waiting for the sprinters to be done so that we could start goal kicks together. So we did like a 200 social kick.
Man, who do I need to petition at Florida to get some more social kick in the program? Welcome to Social Kick. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a partial crew. Luke's off gallivanting somewhere. Who never knows where Luke is. He's all over the place. But we got Dr. John Mullen and joining us from the East Coast, Emma Weyant. What's going on, Emma? Happy to talk to you.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Hell yeah. All right, well, we got some intro rapid fire questions from the audience. First, one that I won't disclose who's asking says, who's your favorite lane mate?
I'm gonna guess this is Gracie. But I will also say I like to swim with Julia Podscanelli and Bella Sims, of course.
Well, if you had to force rank those three, put them in order.
Ooh, wait, I'm gonna change my answer. Tyler Matthew.
Okay, tough love that was from Gracie Weyant. Sorry, Gracie. You are third or fourth wheel now, it sounds like. All right, favorite song on TTPD. This one did come from Gracie as well as Avery Sterling.
I'm going to give you top three. Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, So Long London, and The Black Dog.
I love it. The album's barely been out, and here we are with a ranking of the top ones. All right, this one's from Charlotte Peters _swim, says your favorite pre-meet meal.
Buttered noodles. That's pretty much my favorite thing to eat at a swim meet. If there's noodles in company, we will frequent it more than once.
Okay. Mike Dowd 4 wants to know if you could be any animal, which one would you be?
Ooh, maybe like a dolphin so that I'm better at holding my breath.
Ooh, okay. That's a good one.
I think you'd be a lot better at a few things in the pool if you were a
dolphin. We just do a lot of 50s no breath, and I'm notorious for struggling on them.
All right, that's it for audience questions. If you want to send us any more for some of our shows at Social Kick Swim on Instagram, how many underwater 50s are we talking?
Usually at the end of practice, mostly heading into taper, we'll end our sets with 650s no breath. And you can do them however you want, but they're on like a generous interval. I just am not the greatest at that, being a distance swimmer.
So however you want, is that equipment too, or?
No, like some people choose to do them butterfly. Like we have a couple of our 2 fly guys who end every practice with a 50 fly no breath.
Ooh. Okay, so if it's not underwaters, then what is a skill that, so as a sprinter, we used to do lots of underwaters and breath holding and everything. And so like, that's part of the race, right? So for anyone who doesn't know this at the high level, like most of these athletes at the 50 distance are not breathing for the entire race, or maybe they take one breath in the big pool. So, but what's something that some of like the sprinters have to do that is in your wheelhouse that at the end of a practice that you'd be like, oh, I got this?
Finish it?
I would say
Start.
I think probably my best skill in swimming is kicking. And we do goal kicks usually, which are 75s all out. And I can hang with pretty much anyone on a board freestyle. I think that's always been my gift since I was younger.
Yeah, that's so funny with the kicking too. I like the people that I can recall from my swimming career that were really good at kicking spanned different distances and skill sets. Like there were pure sprinters who were really good at kicking with a board, and then there were distance swimmers that were like unbelievable at kicking with a board. And it's just like that seems like a skill that applies across events. And you can't necessarily typecast looking at the pool who's awesome at kicking. I'm assuming you're talking about kicking with a board.
Yeah. I think the best kicker I've ever like kicked with was Jordan Lomoski, who's an open water swimmer, which is very interesting. And also Bobby Fink's really good fly kick on a board.
So let's hear you flex a little. What are you going in a 75 kick with a board? And is it one of those like, yeah, you can hang with anyone for 175, but if you had like 10 75s kick on, I don't know, like 2 minutes, you're like destroying everyone with some of your endurance?
We've been doing like last Saturday, we started with 10 and it's like a 75 and then like a 400 easy in between. And we do them short course meters usually.
Hmm.
So the goal is to be under 50 on all of them.
Whew.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like trying to be as close to your 100 free time, but like for me, I don't even know when the last time I swam the 100 free was. So it's just trying to be as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's one where that comes in handy. Like, sweet, my 100 free time's not that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about short rest stuff? Short rest versus, a decent amount of rest. What are you good at, and what do you like to do when it comes to workouts?
I think probably my best sets are threshold, which are more short rest, they tend to be. We go threshold Monday night and usually Saturday morning. This past Monday, we did like, we usually mix in like kicking or we swim with a stick and then go into like 200s, 300s, 400s, like short rest. And that kind of like gives you your stroke a little bit of a reset, having like the kick or the stick in between. And we usually are outside doing long course, which is a lot of fun.
What's the stick?
You just hold it and it's kind of like tag drill, but with more of a kick basis because you can't be moving your arms as fast. So it's kind of like a drill.
Is
Got
tag
it.
drill just catch up drill?
Pretty much. You have to hold something, so it makes it a little more difficult to breathe.
Hmm. Yeah, let's
Got
go
it.
ahead and add the breathing component in too. Great. Let's make it harder.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and with your training, I guess, how structured are your weeks at Florida, or is it vary quite a bit? I know at some programs it's like, oh, Mondays we're always doing this, Tuesdays we're always doing this, and some even like the practice has a certain structure, like we always end on a kick set or we always end on a pull set. How about what you've been experiencing down there in Florida?
Yeah, I think for the most part, like the general structure of the week stays the same, but for someone like me, I go like in and out of the group. So I'm in like IM or like mid distance. So I get to like mix with a lot of swimmers and coaches, which is a lot of fun. But we pretty much stick to doing like power Tuesday, Thursday morning, and then Tuesday, Thursday night are always our quality sets. And then the other days we mix in like the threshold, aerobic, things like that.
Now, as I'm not sure if you will call yourself a distance swimmer since you said you switch between groups, but I think traditional thought is, oh, distance swimmers aren't doing much power. And you mentioned that you do have a day dedicated there. I guess is that the same power that we think of with sprinters with like resistance swimming, or what does it look like?
Um, we're a little bit different than the sprinters. They like split off a little bit, but we're still on like the power towers. We did tubing this morning, and then we go into like stroke pull sets where we're like we rotate between fly back breast, and then do like speed after that. And I think that's helped like my IM a lot, getting stronger, pulling different strokes. I wasn't used to that before I got here.
Speaking of that, just on the transition, I feel like, we're reflecting on all the best times, you and all best times at NCs, right? And, you know, it seemed like the transition maybe took a couple of years. It's not like, 2 years
Yeah.
ago was bad. It's just like you're in a
Yeah.
transition year to a new training environment. I'm just curious about like the things that you've learned about yourself as you've kind of settled into where you are now with your swimming. And it seems like, really peaking at an ideal time as you're coming into trials this summer and, another opportunity to showcase where you've had a lot of success in the big pool. So like, you just talk about what it's been like to move through that transition of training and like kind of what you've learned about yourself and what you need along the way.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I definitely struggled a lot last year making that transition. It had been a while since I was back at the level of training that I considered was good for myself. And I think the Florida environment has just taught me that like consistency has been the key to everything. And that's the same mindset as pretty much everyone on the team. And I think that's somewhere that I've really been able to thrive and translate it into going best times for the first time in a while. And it's given me a lot more confidence just not even being consistent throughout the season, but just like throughout the week, like being able to hold it together Monday threshold to be good Saturday morning. And I think that's really helped me, swimming through a meet, especially like at somewhere like NCAA's where I'm ending with a mile.
Could you explain more what you mean by level of training and what you were kind of used to? I mean, when I pretty much changed teams once in my life, and that was to go to college, and we had such different sets. I guess it was really hard for me to even know if things were getting better or worse because everything was changing so much. So what were you kind of using as your parameters or guidelines?
Yeah. I think the past years have just been constantly comparing to like what I was going in practice to like what I could go back home in Sarasota. And I think I've kind of like crossed that bridge and just tried to step into a new segment of my career where I'm confident in what I'm going now. And it's been the best block of training I've had probably in my life. And, that's really thanks to my teammates. And we've had Bella here this year, and her and I have been training together every day. And that's been really great for me.
When you guys are training together, who gets to pick the playlist?
Yeah. Honestly, the coaches rotate who's on aux, and I think Annie probably is the best on aux.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll shout out some Auburn love to Annie. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, could you just talk more about like some of the training environment in the group? Like who are you mixing it up with on a daily basis? It's like, it seems like it's just a huge attraction of obviously like with Katie moving there to train with Bobby and the distance crew, and then you coming in, and then Bella arriving, and then Izzy Ivy coming from California, and all this. Just like it seems like there's like this magnetism happening in Gainesville, but with you moving around to different groups, like what are some of the different like dynamics that come up in each of those little training pockets? You mentioned like training with Bella, you have like a fun day there, but I'd imagine like not every, some of the groups it's more like head down and go. What's the vibe when you get like amongst these different pockets of, athletes that you're training with?
One thing I can say is we have a lot of grinders here, and that's really fun because it's made me step up my game. I think probably the core group that I'm always with is Bella, Zoe Dixon, Mabel Zavaros. We all swim like 400 IM up to like maybe the 800 or mile. And everyone there like works hard every day. There's not a lot of off days for these girls, which is really, really inspiring because sometimes, recovery day, I go as slow as I want, but it makes me be on every other day, which is a lot of fun. But like you said, I get to switch around groups a lot, which is really fun so that we're never just swimming with like the same people or swimming under the same coach because they rotate as well. So that's been great.
I'm happy to hear you take the slow days slow. Yeah, as someone who appreciated taper and recovery days, and as later in the career really needed them, your future self will thank you for
Yeah.
taking those easy days easy. What about just like the mental approach that takes? One of the things I remember toward the end of my career that I found, year after year to become more and more challenging was to show up to the pool on a daily basis and be ready for that physical suffering or pain that's about to take place, because like at this elite level, if you want it, you really got to go get it. And now you're saying you're surrounded by this consistency on a daily basis of people who have proven it, not only in the training pool, but then they show that that's like with their results, that's what it leads to, right? So like I'd imagine at some point it could go the other way where like, it is a mental grind. It's a long training season. So do you ever go through periods of time where it's like, it just takes some getting ready mentally to show up to the pool deck, or you rock up on deck and you're like, oh, here it comes?
Yeah. And I think one thing about this group is that, from Nesty down to the team, there's like an expectation every day to be the best you are that day. Like you said, some days, like we're doing an IM set and like the flying breasts don't feel good with the back and free. So then you take that and run. You kind of, whatever you have that day is what it's going to be. And I think I've learned from, Katie and other people, Bobby, people like that, to just be the best I can be that day, even if it's Friday morning, 4 a.m. and it's not feeling good.
So one audience question, and this is going to kind of go into two questions, wants to know what's the most painful set you ever done? That's by Sienna Piper. And I was chatting with a few other masters swimmers, and we were talking about how you can gauge how hard a practice is going to be by how long it takes you to stand at the end of the lane before you get in. So I guess how long before knowing a really hard set is coming do you stand and just like stare at the water before you can get yourself to jump in?
Sometimes the coaches will say the set and then it's like 30 seconds and you got to go. So it doesn't really like give you time to fully process it, but sometimes that's for the best. For me anyways, you just go into it. But hardest set, that's a good question. Kristen Merslack was writing our 4am practices for the most part this year. And we had one during winter training that pretty much every effort started with a 150 fly, and we were outside, and fly is definitely my weak stroke. It's gotten better, but it hurts me the most. And I think that was probably the hardest IM set this year, but we've definitely done some threshold sets that were more like interval challenging. I mean, outside we're usually on 110 base or faster, and we're in a lane with Katie, Bobby, Gio, Andrew, like the best milers on our team. So we kind of gotta keep up our end to not get lapped. That's sometimes that's the goal.
110 base or faster. That's a long course pool outside at Florida for anyone listening. That's wild. Speaking of that outdoor pool, by the way, is there a plan to have, or do you guys have short course outside? Is there like other pool access outdoors, or is it still just that 5-lane long course pool?
We keep it long course outside for the most part. There's like the Florida pool, which is short course. No, yeah, short course meters, long course yards. I don't know. It's something like weird, but 50-yard pool actually. That's what it is. But we don't go there often. I've actually never been there, but they used to go there more. But we keep outside long course all year, so that we're always rotating through pools.
Man, what's the ideal mix for you? Do you like mixing it up with a bit of short and long course together, or like does that kind of change throughout the season?
Yeah, this year, since it was an Olympic year, we kept one pool inside short course meters, one pool short course yards, and then long course. And then after NCAAs, we've kept both pools inside short course meters. And then once finals are done, we're going to flip inside long course. But I think during the year, it's been really nice to kind of rotate through pools. It definitely helps keep the speed, but also keeping the long course endurance so that when we switch long course season, it's not as much of like a shock.
Nice. Love that. Well, then just looking ahead a bit, so like what's the rest of your kind of build to trials look like? And also I'm curious to know, well, let's just talk about like schedule first. What meets might you have left, and kind of what are you focusing on to get done between now and like being ready for trials?
We are going to go to Atlanta Classic in about 2 weeks. We usually go to that every year, which is a long course meet closer to home. And I'll get to race like the events that I'm probably going to swim at trials, and then
Shout out to that emergency happening.
Yeah, sorry.
Right now.
Everything okay?
Hopefully. And then I'll usually mix some like 200 strokes for the 4am. And then training wise, 6 weeks out, we're still like moving pretty good, putting in the work still, but then we'll start tapering it down in the weight room and in the pool. But I swim towards the beginning of trials, which is nice. So it'll be kind of structured around that.
Right. And then what does taper look like for you? And then also, at this point in your career, how much input do you have on the things that are happening in training as you build toward like a peak meet?
I think for me, I've learned through the years kind of what has helped me. And, Nesty and all the coaches are very like open to talking about that with any of us. But I swim, as you know, like the longer events, so I stay up for a little bit longer than some people. But we have a group that swims similar events, so we're all kind of like going different directions, but we have a group that's doing pretty much the same thing. So it helps like everyone stay focused in their own way. It's easy to like see like the sprinters getting out like an hour earlier than you, but when you have like a group doing the same thing, it helps a lot. also knowing that that's what you need to do to be the best.
And obviously taper is a little bit of ways, but is there any set that comes to mind where you're like, man, I know if I can hit this set during taper, I have, like you said, your past training experiences. If you can hit these intervals, things are really dialed in and looking good.
Yeah, usually Monday mornings are kind of heart rate. So they'll be like 24, 26, 28, like run through a different like yardage. But as we go down and taper, the length of each effort will be smaller. So I just know I want to get faster each week through those, like whether they're 200s, 300s, or 400s. I know that like as we get closer to the meet, I want to keep getting faster.
And go down in volume. What does go down for you get to? Because I think a lot of other people, a lot of sprinters we have on here, we had what Vlad telling us he does like 1,000 a week of swimming pretty much for the 50 free. I assume you're not getting down to that level.
No, I don't think I dip under 4K really until we're at the meet, but I would think that's pretty typical of most D group people.
Yeah, you shouted out your D group with that great relay split on the the relay exchange on the 800 free relay. So got to keep repping D group, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we always
What
have
was
to
your
ask.
relay
Or I was gonna say, what's a reasonable relay exchange in the 800 free relay?
Legal like that. Like last year at FCC's, I like basically just fell into the pool. So my goal this year was to like have a clean start, like enter the pool, not like Kieran sent me a video of my start from last year's NCAAs, and he was like commentating it like a diving flip because I like went straight down.
And so this year you ate we used to say that anything slower than like 0.2 was eating a sandwich on the block.
I mean, yeah, that was as good as it was gonna get, honestly. But we'll try again next year.
Were you 0.45?
Yeah,
Hey, the relay won, right? That was the goal. The relay won.
yeah. I'll just subtract it from my split to make myself look faster.
There you go. Exactly. That is funny how we can play this. I think maybe sprinters might do it more, but I think everyone does it. It's like, man, if I could have gone 0.00, I could have been 19.0. Or, you start adding up your perfect splits in races, and you're like, this is what I think I could have gone.
Yep.
I mean, I used to do that for sure, and it's
Right?
crazy to think
Yeah.
now, because it's so long ago. That at the time, it would have been the fastest split, but I had a sandwich on the block, moment at the end of the 200 freestyle relay at NC's, and I think I was like 0.23, and we had like a pretty big lead. But I remember I went 18.6 in that, and had I been like 0.05 or something more reasonable, that would have been the fastest 50 free split of all time. But at like 18.5 at that time,
It counts.
it's like,
It counts.
it's so crazy. So yes, John, to that point, I have not forgotten about that because I did not have that time. I was like, oh, that would have been so cool. But yeah, regardless. Go ahead, John.
Back to distance, though. You mentioned Olympic trials and your the 4 a.m. being at the start of the program. Maybe talk us through, I guess, how the rest of the meet will go for you with you being done so early.
Yeah, this year is a little different than 2021. The 4M was day 1 last time. I think it's day 3. So I'll start with the 400 free, which is another like focus of mine, I would say. But 400 free, 200 free, 4 a.m. are all within 3 days, which is good and bad. I think it's better for me to stay on schedule, but then after that, I'm pretty much chilling. Like I might do 2 breaths just for like fun, but I think it's good for me to have like those back-to-back swims because it helps me get ready for the next one, especially like that's how we train all year doing college meets. So I think it transfers into long course in that way.
I'm curious to know about like your progression through a meet, and if the volume, like how how that plays in. Like for example, like my experience in a meet was often that I'd prefer to have the 50 free first because I feel like I came in with a lot of speed, and then I was like with warm up and warm down and massages and back and forth. Like at the end of the day, I was like ended up doing a little bit more volume, and I could kind of settle into a pace as like my sharpness fell off a bit to do the 100 free in a longer race. Do you have like an ideal event order? You don't get to control this, but I'm just like if you had the ability to like lay it all out, what how would you approach it? And also just like what are some of the things that you do as you come into a meet and you like work through the flow of, there's just like a lot of back and forth, there's a lot of preparation to do. Like what are some things, the way that you like, just prepare yourself to go through a meet like that?
I think 2021 was the first time that I've ever like started with 4 a.m. right off the bat. So that was kind of like an adjustment for
Mm.
me, but I wouldn't say I hated it. But it was kind of like, it is what it is. So like, you kind of got to do it. But I think what I've found that I really liked is being able to alternate like freestyle and an IM event because it kind of spreads out freestyle and doesn't make it as tired, which has been really nice. I think NCAA is a little bit different because, like the 200 and the 500 are back to back, but having the 4 a.m. rep for the mile has been pretty good for me.
Circling back to 2021, that 400 IM, I refreshed my brain a little watching that race this morning, and I guess the two thoughts from what I saw and maybe our conversation. I guess what were you thinking when you were in third place with like 10 meters left? I'm assuming not much, but what were you thinking? And do you attribute your way to finish your 400 IM long courses because you were closing on Ohashi and the 400 IM at the Olympics too, to just your kick and just being able to just like continue to drive those legs with a little more speed than what maybe other 4IMers can do?
Yeah, I think coming off of the last 50 in Omaha, it was just kind of like I think I had my eyes closed and I was just like putting my head down, kicking as fast as I could. But I think it's definitely um, due to my kick. I've put a lot of emphasis on that through the years, especially back home with Brent and Nesty. We also do a lot of kicking here, but I've always been really consistent with it, and I think it's helped me a lot in those longer races, being able to change speeds a little bit more. I would also say anytime we're doing like our quality or pace sets, we're ending on freestyle, and the coaches have always like drilled that into our heads, like we're finishing this last 50 faster than anyone else. Focusing on the details there, like not breathing into the wall, things like that.
Okay, I gotta know, do people give Bobby shit for saving up and for that style? Like, has everybody do they write like "fink it" on the board for that close last 50?
I mean, yeah, like Kieran's always like chirping him for things like that. But I think like everyone's kind of trying to adopt that style. It doesn't work out for everyone, of course. I've even like if I'm racing Bobby and it kicks out, I'm trying to beat him the last 25, of course.
So does the lack of arms deflate his powers in closing speed the last 25? Is that the secret weapon? You just got to hold his arms back and then do it in a kick set?
I think if he kicked the last 50 to 800, he would be pretty good.
These secret weapons.
I remember when we were talking with Kieran, he talked about some of this chirping in the sets, and I forget the freshman's name, some freshman calling out Katie, and then we asked Kieran if he ever, got in on this. So it sounds like he's chirping a little. What are you doing during these sets? Are you chirping? Or are you just sitting back, enjoying some funny commentary?
Honestly, it depends on the day. I think it's always entertaining to hear the banter between some people. The freshmen this year have been a lot of fun to train with. They bring a lot of energy, especially some of these distance boys. They've been giving Katie a run for her money sometimes, but it's been really fun to train with this group. And I don't know if I'm always doing the chirping. Sometimes I'm like making comments, but nothing like crazy. Kieran's probably the biggest chirper, I would say.
I want to change gears a bit and just talk about like your swimming career longer term. There's still a lot of swimming to live, but some people have got a plan where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do my few years go to the Olympics and done. And you've already been, to an Olympics and have been at several places. What are your thoughts on like, what do you want to do in swimming?
Yeah, I have another year of eligibility left for NCAA, which I'm going to use because I didn't swim my freshman year at Virginia. My sister will be on the team next year, so that's gonna be really fun. I'm looking forward to that. But then after that, I'm not really sure. We'll see how it goes this summer, but I'll be applying to law school next year, so then we'll see where that takes me.
You mentioned Gracie joining you. It made me think of like your sporty swimsuit collection. I think that you did that with your sisters. I guess how how involved are you with like finding sponsors and NIL deals? And I guess talk us through some of that process. I think as the old guys here, we're so intrigued with how this works now with social media and getting NIL deals and sponsorships along the way.
Yeah, this is all fairly new. It kind of came out right after Tokyo.
Mhm.
And I was navigating it kind of alone at first, but I have an agent now, which has been really helpful. But things like Sporty and Swimella and Arena, they're very like lenient and flexible with how they work with us as athletes, which is really nice because we have full school loads and practice, but everyone's been really helpful throughout this whole process.
I'm just curious, have you talked to your agent about like the difference between what a fully pro contract would be versus one that's like under NIL? How do those differ?
Yeah, I think when NIL first started becoming a thing, it was like no one really knew how to deal with it. But I think it's gotten like a lot more similar than most people think at this point, because you see a lot more people staying throughout their entire eligibility now because it's pretty much just as good. There's like a couple things that are different, obviously, with like national team funding and things like that. But I think for the most part, it's catching up in a good way.
You may not know, but I'm going to ask just because Josh Leendo is on the team and obviously a great swimmer and a Canadian swimmer. And as a Purdue swimmer and fan, Zach Eady, our center, came out saying, "Hey, I'm Canadian. There's different NIL deals for international athletes, and I haven't been able to take any money this whole time."
Well, John,
So
we talked about that with Maggie McNeil a
yeah,
while
yeah,
back
we
too.
did. Yep, that we
Yeah.
did. So I guess, do you know more about how that process works for international athletes at all?
I've heard like it's more difficult for people once they've already like accepted like prize money or things like that NIL before they've like started their college eligibility. It's kind of harder to track like how much they've accepted. I think that's part of the reason why it's been difficult for some of the foreigners to accept more NIL, but I'm not exactly sure like what their thing looks like. It also depends on like the compliance officer at every college, like what they will allow.
As a future law student, are you like digging into all the details with compliance? Do you like go hang out and nerd out on the compliance rules?
I can read my contracts a little bit better. I think that's been like a practice for me. Like when my arena contract came through, I'm like, okay, I can learn from this.
Yeah, that's your nighttime reading. You're like winding down by reading contracts.
So as a going into law school, are you gonna like look back at these contracts like most swimmers look back at their swimming career and be like, "Oh, I should have done this better." You're gonna go back and look at your contracts and be like, "What was I thinking?"
I have faith in my agent and their law squad, but I mean, yeah, maybe I'll be drafting some of my own.
What do you want to do with the law degree or law career? What's the vision? Are we legally blonding here or what are we doing?
I'm not exactly sure yet. I have a line of attorneys in my family. Some of them are into like more of the malpractice things like that, but I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. But I knew that like after swimming, I wanted something just as intensive, if not physical, but like something that challenged me. I'm not very good at just like having nothing to do or like sitting around, which I think I could get better at.
Do you have a law firm with four names in the family history? Is there like a Weyant, Sims, Fink, and Ledecky? And If so, how does that prestige come about? If you're starting a law firm, all the prestige is in the first like 1 to 2 names, right? How does that come about?
That's why it needs to be Wyatt. Like one of those firms where you're like, huh? We get it.
I mean, I do have 3 sisters, so that would be kind of cool, but I don't think all of them are wanting to follow that career path. But I don't know. I think it's like you earn your place. I guess it's just like maybe making like a roster spot. I don't know if that's comparable, but
Ooh, nice flex. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The roster spot.
We did have someone ask, Emmy loves pugs, wanted to know what your favorite hobby is. So I guess, like you said, it sounds like
Ooh.
you like to keep busy and like to, keep yourself entertained. So let's hear the hobby list.
Oh, my hobby list. Okay, this is something that I want to get better at is not online shopping as much. I think I've been better this year, but the targeted Instagram ads are hard to resist sometimes. But other than that, like now that I'm back home in Florida, I can visit my family and my sisters a little bit more often, and my favorite place is the beach. So we get to visit and go to the beach a little more than I have been, which is nice.
All right, Emma, we'll end with some rapid fire here. What's the hardest race in swimming?
400 IM.
Olympic gold or world record?
Olympic gold.
Do you pee in the pool?
Yes.
Gracie wants to know snorkel or kickboard?
Snorkel.
Saw_the_so_sig wants to know kicking or pulling.
Kicking.
And I'm going to add on top of this, if you are pulling, who's the best puller that you've been around?
Katie Ledecky.
And give me an example.
She's the best puller I've ever seen in my life. I think she's better than most of the men. Even if it's just buoy, she's laughing at me every time.
Okay. Next time that actually you may have already done this. The video that you have to make before trials or the Olympics where they do like the walkout video board. What's your go-to dance or pose? What do you like to do?
I'm gonna have to flip it to a gator chomp this time around.
Oh, I like the gator chomp. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. But a big one too, not one of the
Yeah.
just like the hand. Okay. Best post-race celebration.
I will never get on a lane line. I'm gonna say that.
Never.
No, never. That's not my style, but
You respect lane lines. I see that.
respect, I guess. Yeah. Except we had someone fall off the lane line this year at SECs during a celebration.
Whoa, what is the fear of an Owen Lloyd NC State DQ situation?
I think I'm a little bit more subtle than that.
Okay. What's your biggest vice with online shopping? Most likely to buy?
Shoes.
Who played more jokes on who growing up, you or Gracie?
Gracie.
What's the race you're most excited to watch at trials besides your own?
Men's 200 free.
Do you see your family during the race or not? And are they nervous people?
My mom is very nervous. When I watch back actually the trials one jam, I can hear her yelling pretty clearly. So
What is the thing have you ever been to Paris?
no.
And out of any French typical thing, what would you be most excited to do or experience post racing in Paris?
That like hot chocolate, that's like pure melted chocolate. I've seen it like all over TikTok, but that looks incredible.
Does this have a name? What is this?
I don't know. It's like some cafe, but I'll look it up.
Speaking
It's
of
good. I think we
TikTok,
did that when we were in Paris. We brought some back. I have no idea
Mm.
what it was or anything about it, but my wife was all aware.
Mm.
speaking of TikTok, what are your most followed accounts?
My For You page is pretty much covered with like shopping, cats, or like apartment decor because I was in like redoing some things.
Okay. What about Spotify Wrapped?
Taylor Swift.
All Taylor Swift.
Yes.
There was one answer.
Taylor Swift.
All right, and then we close it out for one of the fastest kickers at Florida and maybe the world. How much of it is social kick?
Ooh. I think we've social kicked. Okay, we've social kicked once this year when we were waiting for the sprinters to be done so that we could start goal kicks together. So we did like a 200 social kick.
Man, who do I need to petition at Florida to get some more social kick in the program? I might have to start with Annie, I think, as my
Yeah.
Auburn in, and then maybe we'll branch out to Nesty and some others. Come on, we gotta get some social activity. It's not all just before and after. So
Should this be our shout out to petition to get Nesty on the show to make Luke's dreams come true? This is like Luke's childhood hero. Is our other host Luke, who's not here, grew up in Trinidad in the Caribbean, so Nesty is like his idol.
Loves it. Yeah, man. I don't know. Come on, Nestor, you're killing me. Anyway, Emma, we're very excited to watch you the rest of the season, and congrats on all the success thus far. It's great to see you peaking and at the right time, and have some exciting things in the future. It's going to be awesome to have your sister there next year, but lots to happen before then. So we'll be watching. Love to have you back sometime. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, that's it for this episode of Social Kick. We'll see you next time.
See you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick. And you can find all of our content on our website at thesocialkick.com.